Hello, this is John Rankin with the TEI International, TEII.org. I'd like to share with you a vignette from my book, Changing the Language of the Abortion Debate, which is available at johnrankinbooks.com, concerning a debate I was invited to address in 1989 at the University of New Hampshire. Now, it was a panel discussion with 3 people representing pro-life and 3 people representing legalized abortion. During the Q&A, one young woman asked me a question where she thought that I was advocating ignorance. Now, she had misunderstood something that I had said earlier so clearly that when I answered her straightforwardly and respectfully, the audience broke out in some laughter, even caustic laughter toward her, even though most of the audience of some 400 people was in favor of legalized abortion. They knew she had clearly misunderstood me. So I thought nothing more of it and moved on, but I didn't know that she was loaded for bear because she had so embarrassed herself in the process. Right after the event, I was in a conversation with the minister who represented the Religious Coalition for Abortion Rights. We had interacted during the debate itself. A dozen or so people were surrounding us, listening to our conversation. This young woman came in from my left, and then she looked straight at me and she said, interrupting us all, "Stop trying to force your religion on me." Now, I found that a little bit surprising because what I'd articulated all night long was the level playing field for all ideas to be heard equally as rooted in Genesis 2. Now, I didn't give that theological background so much, but that is the reality. What I was saying was that everyone needs to be at the table so they can be heard, and the only ethic that is appropriate in the face of a debate is persuasion, not coercion. And so my position is very, very clear. And so I looked at her, and then I said, "I'm not forcing religion on anyone, only seeking to persuade people openly and honestly." Continuing here from my book, as I took the notes down right thereafter and record them in my book, she gazed intently in response and declared, "Well, you know, my God is not your God." Well, something changed in the heavenlies of that moment. Now, biblically, there is the invisible and the visible worlds. Even modern science is aware of this. That's what dark matter is all about. That's the principle of non-locality as identified in the Hadron Collider. That's the debate over the mind and the brain. The brain can be judged in the visible range, visible world. The mind cannot in terms of visible material access. And so this is a reality that is assumed and known throughout Scripture. So something touched that right at that moment, though I didn't know what I was being surprised by it. So, being surprised, I resorted to a bit of humor, and with a smile I said, "Well, that's obvious." And I continued, "Nonetheless, we both have freedom in a democratic society to try and persuade one another. You are free to try and persuade me, and I am free to try and persuade you." Now, at this moment, her voice dropped more than an octave, far deeper than where my voice can go. And she said, "Well, I don't believe in democracy." When she did so, there was a wind, a literal wind that blew out of her soul, out of her person, with such force that I fell back 2.5 feet, and so did everyone else surrounding me, including some students from Gordon Conwell Theological Seminary who were with me that evening. And it was amazing. We did a post-mortem afterward, what had happened. The whole discussion immediately ceased. Everyone walked away, and the minister with the Religious Coalition for Abortion Rights had an incredible look of disgust on his face as he turned away as well. So what was happening? Here's my theological observation. In Genesis 2, again, which I teach in detail in my book, Changing the Language of the Abortion Debate, and I teach elsewhere. In Genesis 2, there are 3 opposites. They are paralleled as they are defined: good versus evil, freedom versus slavery, and life versus death. And when you take those parallel opposites, you have the good equals the freedom to choose life, and evil equals the slavery of imposed death. When we look at the debate over human abortion, it is overwhelmingly driven by male chauvinism, men who get women pregnant and take off. It is not a woman's freedom. It is a man's irresponsibility when you come right down to it in the vast majority of cases. Now, the whole mythology in the debate over human abortion is the language of pro-choice. It's not pro-informed choice. And the fact is that I was exposing that by simply living truly informed choice, wanting a level playing field for all ideas to be heard equally. This goes right to the core of Genesis 2, because every religious origin text in history, apart from Genesis, starts off with the gods and goddesses who are slaves to principalities they can't control. They beat up on each other, and they enslave human beings. And therefore, this leads to the fatalism of sorcery, sacred prostitution, and child sacrifice, which the Bible profiles, which are the three cardinal sins that Jeremiah prosecutes just before the Babylonian exile. And so it happens here by using the biblical power of informed choice, defining terms honestly on a level playing field. That's one thing the devil cannot stand. He who is the murderer from the beginning, he who is the slanderer, he who is the destroyer, according to biblical language. Therefore, the debate over human abortion is hugely spiritual, hugely biblical when you come right down to it. And unless we understand biblical theology 101 and the nature of the invisible and the visible, we will never, those of us who are biblical believers, unless we understand this, we will never be able to change the culture when it comes to the debate over human abortion and the true nature of what freedom is all about. Again, thank you for your attention to this video. My website is teii.org, and God bless.